This is the Pennine Way footbridge, and underneath is the M62, the highest motorway in Britain. Its carriageways are aerodynamically shaped so that in winter the wind will automatically scour the snow off the surface, making it the first all-weather route across the Pennine Range, linking the heavy industrial counties of Yorkshire and Lancashire. You know, it's an old joke that Yorkshire and Lancashire never get to speak to each other. But it's not so surprising when you realise that the Pennines have always formed a natural barrier between them. To build this section of motorway, they had to dig out nearly 12 million cubic yards of rock and earth. If you piled that lot onto Manchester City's football ground, you'd have a hill 1 mile high. But it's more than just a feat of modern engineering. This motorway is a symbol, the end of, or the beginning of, an era. At last, nature's iron curtain dividing east from west has been breached.
Of course, back in the old days, the Pennine barrier really didn't matter all that much. From time immemorial right up to the 18th century, if you wanted to get from Yorkshire into Lancashire, then the only way was over the top, like this, by pack horse.
There used to be hundreds of pack horse trails crisscrossing these hills. It was a bit on the slow side, but time wasn't so important then, and you generally got there in the end. Then along came the Industrial Revolution, and that was the end of the pack horse era. No realistic businessman could afford to transport his goods on animals which could carry no more than about 1/8 of a ton apiece. For the first time, the Pennines became more than just an inconvenience. They became a threat to the growth of industry.
Come on, come on. Move. Easy. Steady. Steady. Come on now. Come on.
A new way had to be found across them. And so, the canal boom began.
Water as a means of transport. It was a bold new idea. Cheap, efficient, reasonably fast. But even bolder was the plan for a canal which would slice right through the Pennine chain. They built it with a series of 42 locks, building up the level of the water bit by bit until they reached 400 feet. And then they dug what in those days must have been an engineering marvel, the Standedge Tunnel.
The highest and longest in Britain, more than 3 miles from one end to the other. Standedge cost £1.25 million and 11 lives. They ran out of money twice, but on April the 4th, 1811, the tunnel was complete and the east-west passage was opened. Not over the Pennines, but underneath.
This tunnel's been boarded up now for nearly 30 years. That's why I'm wearing this. They opened it up specially for me today. They weren't very happy about it. I'm not very happy about it myself. Can you imagine what it must have been like for the old bargemen coming through here? There was no towpath. All the boats had to be propelled manually. And don't forget, they were carrying about 25 tons apiece. They called it legging. What they used to do, a man would lie at each side of the boat like this and then literally walk along the wall. A grueling job. Inch by inch, foot by foot, mile by mile, their progress marked by a plaque on the ceiling or wall every 50 yards. It could take as long as 5 hours of back-breaking work to get from one end to the other.
But in spite of it all, the tunnel just never paid off. Only one boat could get through at a time. The industrialists found it more practical to send their goods on a 100-mile detour to the north. In some sections, the walls and ceiling have been carefully bricked. In others, the route is carved out of the solid rock. You can hear the strangest noises, too. That sound marked the final death knell for the Standedge Tunnel.
Ironically, it was used most of all when they were building the twin railway tunnels which replaced it. What they used to do, as they were digging out the earth and rock, they would bring it down these passageways here, load it onto barges on the canal back there, and cart it out that way. But even more ironical still is the fact that this railway tunnel, which killed off the canal, has now itself been killed off. It stands empty and unused.
The canal replaced the pack horse. The railway closed the canal. The road took over from the railway. And now, the newest link of all, the final solution, the M62. Or is it really new? Was there perhaps a route across the Pennines many centuries before the Industrial Revolution?
Blackstone Edge. You can see how it got its name. Not far from the M62. But here on this desolate hillside is a mystery which has puzzled historians for hundreds of years. A fully paved road, built in the worst climatic conditions Britain has to offer, and yet, as you can see, apart from the grass growing over it, almost as sound as the day it was first constructed. Who built it and why? Where was it coming from? Where was it going to? It could have been Roman. It certainly has their style. Up and over the hilltop, straight as a die. We know there was a Roman station somewhere hereabouts, and it's reasonable to suppose that the road may have been going there. But there are some people who claim that it was constructed much later, perhaps in the reign of Elizabeth I, by miners working in the Pennines. And look at this groove here. What was that for? The drainage ditches are on either side of this road. There are as many theories about this groove as there are about the road itself. Was it, as some people say, for some form of primitive brakes which dragged behind or below the wagons to stop them careering off? Or was it, as others say, made for the passage of Cromwell's guns during the Civil War? Or was it, the most spectacular theory of all, for the keels of Viking longships being dragged overland east to west? Only the hills can answer that one.